Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking Psalm 2, a foundational, messianic roadmap for the Torah-observant believer. You know, if Psalm 1 lays down the blueprint for the individual believer walking out the Torah, Psalm 2 takes that exact same lens and zooms way out, expanding it to a cosmic, national scale. Together, they form this absolutely seamless introduction to the entire Psalter, shifting us from a deeply personal focus right into a massive global reality.
To really grasp the weight of this ancient text, we'll be breaking it down into 5 key areas. First up, the raging of the nations. Second, the divine reaction. Third, the decree of sonship. Fourth, the warning to earthly rulers. And finally, number 5, the covenant ultimate security.
All right, Section 1, the raging of the nations. Let's just dive right into the thick of this global rebellion.
Listen carefully to how this text opens. It starts with this rhetorical question that's just filled with holy astonishment. Psalm 2, verses 1 through 3. Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, "Let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us." You know, this perfectly mirrors the warning back in Psalm 1 about not walking in the counsel of the ungodly. But here, we're seeing exactly what that ungodly counsel looks like on a massive global scale.
And looking at the Hebrew here, the word used for rage is ragash. This isn't just some quiet internal frustration. No, it denotes a tumultuous gathering, a literal noisy uproar, or a state of completely chaotic rebellion. It perfectly captures this physical gathering of earthly kings who are actively organizing against the Creator's absolute authority.
So what's the crucial point? This global rebellion isn't random chaos. It is highly specific, targeting 2 interconnected authorities. First, Yahweh, the Most High and the ultimate lawgiver. And second, his anointed, or in Hebrew, the Mashiach, Yosua. The rulers of the earth are literally uniting against a very specific divine administration.
Now, we know for sure this isn't just some abstract, far-off prophecy. The early dynamic community of believers saw an instant, literal fulfillment of this when Yosua faced immense persecution during his first advent. When they were facing down both religious and secular authorities, they actually lifted their voices in Acts chapter 4 to quote this exact psalm, saying, "For truly against your holy servant Yosua, whom you anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate with the Gentiles and the people of Israel were gathered together."
And wow, doesn't this just brilliantly illustrate the ongoing tension in our world today? Think about it. What are these bonds and cords the nations are so desperate to cast away? Well, to the carnal mind, Yahweh's morality, his dietary laws, his Sabbath boundaries, they feel like restrictive chains. They see them as outdated burdens, stifling human autonomy. They literally cry out for liberation from biblical standards. But for us, the righteous perspective is the exact opposite. Like Psalm 119 verse 45 declares, "And I will walk at liberty, for I seek your precepts." True freedom, true liberty is only found inside the boundaries of Yahweh's Torah. Anything else is just lawless rebellion, and that only leads to decay.
Moving right along to Section 2, the divine reaction. Let's shift our perspective for a minute away from the earthly chaos down here and look straight up to the heavenly throne room to see exactly how the Creator responds to all this.
So, while military superpowers are busy passing their globalist resolutions and boasting about their self-sovereignty, how does the Creator react? He doesn't tremble. He doesn't mobilize a heavenly defense force in a panic. Let's read Psalm 2, verses 4 through 6. "He who sits in the heavens shall laugh. Yahweh shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath and distress them in his deep displeasure. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion." Yahweh simply issues a finished, completely non-negotiable decree. Notice that reaction. The Creator's response is yishak, meaning a mock or a laugh of absolute derision. You really have to picture this from the vantage point of the heavenly throne room. From up there, human empires and all these grand global assemblies, they're less than a drop in a bucket.
This divine sovereignty is beautifully backed up by the prophet Isaiah. In Isaiah 40, verses 22 and 23, it is written, "It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He brings the princes to nothing. He makes the judges of the earth useless." It absolutely doesn't matter what laws earthly judges pass. Before Elohim, they are completely powerless.
Because Yahweh's geopolitical agenda is entirely fixed. Remember, he declares, "I have set my king on my holy hill of Zion." He's already selected his king and has already chosen his global capital.
This beautifully mirrors Isaiah 2 verse 3, which promises, "For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem."
Okay, let's jump into section 3, the decree of sonship. Because right here in verse 7, the voice within the text actually shifts. The king himself steps forward to speak directly about his inheritance.
Yosua steps forward and quotes a specific royal covenantal decree given to him by the Father. He says, "I will declare the decree. Yahweh has said to me, 'You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron. You shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel." Talk about sweeping authority. This is an inheritance that encompasses literally every single square inch of the planet.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the Apostle Paul reveals exactly when this royal decree was validated before the eyes of the whole world. In Acts 13, verses 32 and 33, Paul states, "Elohim has fulfilled this for us, their children, in that he has raised up Yahshua, as it is also written in the second psalm, 'You are my son, today I have begotten you.'" So this specific decree of sonship, it was officially, unequivocally manifested to the world through the ultimate miracle of the resurrection.
And just look at how he takes possession of this inheritance. Yeshua doesn't sit down to negotiate with rebellious systems, and he certainly doesn't ask for their permission. He takes possession with a terrifying rod of iron, which historically was a heavy tool used to permanently shatter defiant clay pottery. This is ultimate absolute authority to execute judgment, and it's perfectly verified in Revelation 19 verse 15, which says, "And he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty Elohim."
Which brings us to section 4, warning to earthly rulers. Because this judgment is completely set in stone, Yahweh provides a passionate, intensely merciful call to earthly rulers, a real chance for them to turn from their lawlessness and actually live.
We really need to read these final verses verbatim because they perfectly command worldly leaders to just drop their arrogance. "Now therefore be wise, O kings, be instructed, you judges of the earth. Serve Yahweh with fear and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and you perish in the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all those who put their trust in him."
Let's dig into the wording here for a second. When the text says be instructed, it uses the Hebrew root yavasru. This isn't just about gaining some head knowledge. It means to chasten, to correct, or to admonish. It's intimately tied to accepting the actual discipline of Yahweh's Torah. The rulers of the earth are being explicitly commanded to submit to a higher law code.
And then we see the command to kiss the Son, or nashku. Think back to the ancient Near Eastern court system. To kiss the hand or the feet of a monarch was the ultimate act of political fealty, profound respect, and absolute submission. It is a deeply physical and spiritual acknowledgement of Yahshua as the absolute supreme ruler.
The severe warning here is that if these rebellious leaders refuse to submit, they will perish in the way. And wow, this language perfectly mirrors the exact conclusion of Psalm 1 verse 6, which tells us, "For Yahweh knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish." So whether it's individual rebellion or massive, global, political rebellion, Torah-less living always leads to the exact same destination, complete and dynamic destruction.
Finally, we arrive at section 5, the covenant's ultimate security. This is where we bring this magnificent, ancient text right into our modern, daily walk as believers. Psalm 2 is designed to leave the Torah-observant believer with an immovable sense of peace. Seriously, when you look at the nightly news and see all this global instability, or when you see modern laws passed that actively mock the decrees of the Most High, you do not need to panic. The King is already installed on the holy hill of Zion. Our ultimate ashrei, our blessing, is found by putting our full trust, our physical walk, and our spiritual devotion entirely, securely in Yahweh's hands.
At the end of the day, the empires of this world, with all their plotting and all their raging, are literally nothing more than fragile clay pots just waiting for the strike of the iron rod. The inheritance is already signed over, the king is firmly on the throne, which leaves every single one of us with one vital, soul-searching question to answer today. Will you kiss the Son?